Hey guys, it's Ross going on the Space Couch. Say, me and Mike watched this yesterday. My birthday treat to myself that I inflicted on you.
Yes.
Lifeforce from 1985. 35 years on, how does it stand up?
Well,
So,
you use
where
the
do you want to
word.
start?
You use the word treat.
Treat.
Yeah.
It's a
It was
guilty
a treat.
pleasure, I think, is a
Yes,
better way
I
of
think
putting
that
it.
would be a guilty pleasure. I mean, I also mentioned before we watched it that I had nostalgic memories. A memory of watching this movie as a 10-year-old kid.
Yeah.
That just gives away my age. Anyway, and I only remembered the end of the movie, the last bit. You know when.
Because there was quite a bit in that movie I didn't remember at all.
Yeah, I'd say about 90% of it I did not remember.
I mean, I kind of remembered the overall themes and stuff, but a lot of the specifics I've completely forgotten.
Okay, so shall we start by sharing with the viewer what the basic storyline, without spoilers, we can get into those later.
So, it's 1986, and there is a British space shuttle, the Churchill, on approach to Halley's Comet. And it was that sequence I thought was technically very well done. Those effects, all of them, but that specifically was done by John Dykstra, who actually did the special effects for Star Wars A New Hope, which at that point was only about 7 or 8 years previously. And all that camera work and the modelling and stuff, you can really see that influence in the opening sequences. But it's funny because there's a lot of attempts at paying attention to detail scientifically in that sequence that just goes right out the window later.
Oh, yeah.
So the space shuttle, it's got these really long solar arrays extending out, which would make sense because that far out from the sun, you'd need them that size to collect enough sunlight to generate power. And they go into like the coma of the tail, or whatever, of this of Halley's Comet, and then they discover this 150-mile long artifact inside. They go inside, find these creatures, humanoids.
Was it 150 miles long?
150 miles long. And I think it was 2 miles high.
That's right, yeah.
2 miles high. But that's like the long, thin tube. Obviously, there's a giant solar sail collector thing at the back, and there's the weird thing at the front as well. So they go inside, and visually it's very impressive inside this alien ship. But they're just left the shuttle, then they're inside the ship.
Yeah. Before we even get to that point, do you want to talk about how gravity was achieved on the ship?
They mentioned they've got this special drive with acceleration, and as I recall, that would give you a form of gravity to constant acceleration, but that's just how they hand wave that away. They haven't bothered inventing anti-grav. They didn't have enough money to show them basically floating around, so they're just...
They had a couple of shots where they did, but it was clearly they were hanging on strings. That was quite apparent.
Definitely. So anyway, they go back to the ship, the Churchill. 30 days later, it cuts to, and it's tumbling through Earth orbit, basically. No contact or anything. They send up the shuttle Columbia, because there's always a shuttle on standby, to see what happened, and the whole shuttle has been gutted by fire. But they find the bodies of the creatures from the ship as well. Take them down to Earth. And then there's one survivor. They're brought to London, which is very odd, because I'm sure the Americans would just be delighted to hand over alien space creatures to another country.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, then they find out that there's a survivor. Carson, the commander.
Who was played by...
Steve Railsback.
Steve Railsback. Don't say it like as if we all know who he is.
I don't know who he is.
No one knows who Steve Railsback is.
I just remember his name from having read it. You recognise his face probably, maybe.
I recognise it from this.
Oh, right, okay. So Carson is escape pod from the Churchill, lands in Texas. They then mention in the next scene that he's at the Walter Reed Army Hospital, which is just outside Washington, D.C., and then he's in London at the European Space Research Group, or whatever it's called.
The very next day.
Yeah. So anyway, the creatures, 1 female, 2 male. They do that thing that they always do in these situations, leaving such a valuable asset almost completely unguarded and unwatched.
Yeah. Or, if it is guarded, it's by one person.
And not the sharpest tool in the box.
Yeah. Now, the main setup for the film was generally respectable.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, missing a few scientific, total screw-ups. It it started off okay.
Yeah.
By the time it got to the point where Carson, the main lead, was in London, this is where the film just took a turn into, I don't know if you could describe it as, it wasn't pandemonium, although it did get to that point.
It certainly takes...
Storytelling wasn't the main focus.
It doesn't quite jump the shark, although there are some moments where they certainly nuke the fridge, as they say.
So anyway...
Yeah. So, the girl comes out of her coffin, I suppose it is a clear thing, and seduces this security guard very easily because of her feminine wiles and female power and basically hypnotism, I think it must be.
Yeah.
And so she kisses him and drains all of his life force. Roll credits. And so he's just this withered husk. And then she escapes.
Yeah.
They find the withered husk, and then after a couple of hours, it comes back to life.
Yes.
During an autopsy, because that always happens in autopsies. Any number of films, the thing they think is dead doesn't. Blade, the first one, for instance.
Yeah, that's an interesting parallel.
Yeah.
I never thought that would come up. But
you mentioned that you were going to make a parallel to another film, but I don't know if this would be the right point for that or not. If we've got to.
Well, have we mentioned the three bodies we have? Haven't we?
We mentioned the three bodies: the girl and the two males.
Yeah,
the males also escape.
Yeah. No, the parallel I was going to make, and it's really loose, tenuous link. And I was thinking this at the time when we were watching it. I wonder if Minority Report got an idea from this. But then I thought, no.
What with the female and two males?
Yeah.
I think Minority Report's from
Actually,
earlier.
it's Philip K.
But this is, yes, so it will have been earlier, although this 1985 film was based on a 1976 novel, but I still think that Philip K. Dick could have had an influence from it.
Could have done. Yeah, anyway, that was my,
So, the girls escaped, and they find a body in Hyde Park. They bring that one in. And yes, the first one, the security guard, comes back to life in the autopsy because it's been a couple of hours, and he needs to basically drain someone else, get life force, so he can continue living. So he gets one of the surgeons, and so he's another one infected. So then it is very odd where it turns out Carson can sense the presence of the female vampire, and she makes contact with him during a dream.
Yes, some borderline erotic stroke.
Because the actress, so she was very beautiful, Matilda May, I think she was French, but I mean, I think she was hired basically because of her physique nature.
Yeah, that was it.
Because there was a lot of it.
Yeah, because it wasn't about her acting ability, because the role didn't require it, to be fair to her.
No.
But yes, so Carson discloses when he gets to London, and they say, "Okay, Carson, what is going on? What really happened on the ship?"
Oh yeah, and Harry from Spooks, much younger in this role, has now turned up, Commander Kane of the SAS, who basically kind of seems like he's not faced at all by anything he's hearing. This is all perfectly normal. Vampires from space.
Yeah, and he just accepts everything that Carson is saying, just on face value.
Yeah.
So he said, "Yeah, I can sense where she is," and they get to this point where Carson says that I've traced the lead vampire to some insane asylum.
She'd occupied a body of her mind had occupied a body. Her body is somewhere else.
Yeah,
and of this woman who looked like Rula Lenska, to be honest.
Yes.
Who then seduces some farmer type, and whatever, and then she's a nurse at the insane asylum. So Carson has sensed her presence, so they go to this insane asylum where Patrick Stewart is the director.
Yeah.
And it all gets a little bit off key because they go to this nurse's apartment and they start literally slapping her around.
Yeah, I mean, you could have put Prodigy Smack My up on there, but
because he's looking into the mind and he sees a vampire in there, but he's looking into her mind as well. And was it saying she's a sadist and a masochist? So basically, she wants him to hurt her.
Yeah. While this other guy, the general, is just sat there, just watching. Like, this is normal.
Yeah, this is fine.
I can get with this. You slap
there
him
won't
around.
be any employee tribunals following this.
No. So anyway, you said Patrick Stewart. He's the lead psychologist of this insane asylum.
Yes, and but Carson, looking into the girl that he's assaulting, realises the vampire's not in there anymore. So basically, just throws her away and says, "Oh, it's in the child murderer."
Yeah.
Or he describes this guy, huge birthmark, all that stuff, clearly a psycho child murderer. So they go to that cell with Patrick Stewart and another orderly, and his face looked a bit familiar.
Yeah.
But I couldn't remember who he was. And said, get the pentothal. We'll keep them under and hypnotise them and question them. How you can question someone when they're unconscious, I'm not quite sure.
The hypnosis drug.
Yes, the hypnosis drug. But anyway, shocker. It turns out Patrick Stewart is the one who's being occupied by the vampire. So it's like, into his arm. And then Patrick Stewart gets to act and emote and throw himself
bless
around.
him, he tried his best with the material. He did, you know. He did the best he could. That's what I've got to say. But things get out of hand with him. So
he gets injected multiple times.
Yeah, in the neck.
Is that the scene where
they stab him in the neck?
It's basically it's like Poltergeist and all the stuff is flying around the room.
Yes,
because he/she gives off basically like a EMP blast that kind of looks like, and all the furniture's flying around. People get thrown everywhere. Harry from Spooks Kane gets thrown against the wall. Looks like he's dead from the way he lands, but he isn't, of course. So then they said, we must take him back to London. Got to keep him under so she can't escape.
Yeah.
So they get on the helicopter, because they flew up to Yorkshire on the helicopter and back again. But in that time, other things have happened. They were going to go back to the Space Research Centre because other people who knew about it were there. And but they get diverted to the Citadel, which I guess is Whitehall, to see the Prime Minister. There's going to be a big meeting of everybody, find out what's going on.
One of those Cobra meetings.
Helicopter lands, they go into the building. You see the shot showing them coming in this way, Patrick Stewart on the stretcher being carried out, and also there was a government minister with him at the insane asylum, and he died during the encounter. His face is familiar. We've just seen him in loads of things. I can't remember
his neck was broken. No explanation as to why or how that happened.
Probably during the throwing about.
Yeah.
So anyway, they going through this big warrant of a base to get to the Prime Minister's office, and the secretaries there said, the Prime Minister will see you shortly. Would you like a cup of tea? And it's like, business is urgent. It's like... And anyway, the Prime Minister comes out looking a little bit unwell and just dabbing his face because he's a little bit clammy. He said, Miss Havisham, or whatever her name was.
Yeah, Secretary.
I must speak to you for a moment.
Name.
Yes, gentlemen, I know your business is urgent. Just a moment. And anyway, he takes her off into another room and the door closes but doesn't close fully and kind of opens back a little bit. And so they can peek around the corner to see him leading her behind basically another doorway. And then it's like you see the shadows where he's doing the whole thing and draining her life force. So it's like, we're out of here. So they're going straight back out of the base. I think someone else collapses when they're walking past them. They come out of the building. They're walking to the helicopter. They're on the helicopter. The doors burst open and zombie vampire soldiers come dashing out.
Yeah, which doesn't seem to...
Very fast, that spread.
Yeah.
But I suppose it would in a confined space like that.
But they just chucked in zombies because before that...
what happened to Patrick Stewart?
Yeah. Oh, we didn't mention that when these... people were infected, all right, they drain the life force out of you. If they don't feed in a few hours, they
explode sometimes.
Yeah, they sometimes explode. They didn't say why some explode and why some don't. No. Some are zombies, but basically after that, it was just pandemonium. London was on fire. It should have just been called the Great Fire of London. And some space stuff that was going on. So
basically at that point, because Dr. Falada, I think it was... Frank Finlay at the European Space Research Group phones them up. It's like, is that when he tells them that the two male vampires aren't dead? Yeah, that's right, because they can jump bodies. At the beginning, they thought they'd killed the two male vampires, throwing grenades at them, but they just swapped their consciousness and escaped in the bodies of the guards. Yeah. And they've been out infecting everyone ever since. So it's literally 28 days later, London. Zombie vampires everywhere, draining people. Explosions going off. Lifeforce zapping about everywhere. Yeah. Blowing things up as well.
Yeah, people crashing cars, things on fire.
Also, it's all very exciting. It's like, this is happening, and this is happening, and this is happening. Yeah. So Kane's going to see Falada at the research group. Carson knows where the girl's body is. Some... explanation about she's a collector and the other one sends the energy to her. Doesn't make sense. And the spaceship from the comet is now in a geostationary orbit above London. And there's a sky beam going up from what's probably meant to be St Paul's Cathedral of Lifeforce to charge up that ship. That's just a load of plot that they just crowbar in a few minutes saying, oh, they're vampires, maybe they've been here before. Oh, and Carson says, yes, they have been before. I'm linked to her somehow.
Yeah.
Supposedly, she gave him a bit of her energy.
Yeah, but again, just accept this on what he's saying as it's going along.
Compared to what comes later. But then it's funny because Falada had a conversation on the phone with the two of them, and he was telling them how to describe it. And from somewhere he had this very ornate sword. It's very much, you must hit them not in the heart, but 2 inches beneath the heart, not with a staff of wood, but of metal.
The old traditional way.
The old traditional way.
Yeah, which none of us have heard of.
Yeah, and then in the background, a security guard came in and said, "Oh, Dr. Falada." And you just know from like how it cuts on it, that was one of the male vampires, and that he knew that as well. Yeah. And he killed one of them like that, but not before he got infected as well. So there's then one of those scenes where Kane is talking to him, he's in the shadow by the window, casually mentions that another character who had been quite significant in the first part of the movie is just dead now.
Dead, yeah. It's like they made, as they were making it, like, wasn't it supposed to be someone else?
Did something else happen? I forgot.
Oh
yeah, quick title.
All right, that's it. Yeah, he's dead. Yeah. You say that, and then the audience won't. They won't notice it. They won't.
Yeah. So Carson gets to the cathedral and gets down to the crypt where her body is, and she's lying there all naked. And of course, they have sex. And this is where she starts saying, like, "You're one of us. You've always been one of us. We came for you." I don't know if she came for you. It's like, what? Where did that come from?
And this is my
How
problem.
is he a vampire? He's a human from Earth.
That's exactly what you said. How is that possible? How is that possible?
But they've been here before.
Yeah. And this is the thing. There's no follow-up questions. People just say stuff, and it's like, yeah, okay, we'll go with that. Yeah. No, nothing else.
A better movie would have had some sort of reference to some weird event that happened hundreds of years previously, and maybe certain genetic changes from then that passed down through the line to this guy.
But I think
I'm giving it way too much credit.
You are,
and more thought than they do.
My assumption was that this was the 1980s and everyone was dumb, and that's why no one asked any questions back then. But then you did highlight to the point that this bombed in the cinemas. So
I think I saw it in the cinemas, and I do really enjoy it, but I'm very aware of its problems. But yes, anyway, so it's the big finale. So Kane has managed to make his way through zombie vampire London, and where one of the male vampires, who has been flying about in Lifeforce energy form, sucking up all of the souls, because they mentioned specifically it's souls.
All of a sudden.
Just basically a ball of energy. Then he appears in a flash outside of the cathedral, and it's all like coming into him like this, like he's like the focus, she's the collector, all that stuff. Kane's out at the bottom of the stairs and everything, and the vampire guy turns to look at him, and this is his only line in the entire film. It's like, it'll be far less terrifying if you just come to me.
Yeah.
So he does, with the sword, straight in him, he dies, briefly turns into the giant bat creature that was in the ships previously, and then he explodes, and there's almost nothing left of him. He then goes to the crypt and starts shouting, "Carson, Carson!" trying to distract him from
the weird soul sex that they were having.
Yeah. And anyway, he throws down the sword. Carson gets it, stabs it through the two of them, and then they rise up the skybeam to the ship, which is now fully charged, and it leaves. All the zombies are now dead, of course, because all of their life force has been sucked out. And Carson has stood at the bottom, looking up. It's like one of those sorts of things like, we're saved, it's going, the moon didn't explode, the sun didn't explode, the alien spaceship is leaving, all that sort of thing. And that's the end of the film,
and then it's just the end. So it's like, okay.
No denouement or anything, just
so
end.
What happened? Did they escape? Did they die?
They were going to nuke London. NATO were going to nuke London. Did that happen? I assume not. What happened to the ship? It looked like it was going back to Halley's Comet. So I'm assuming hello again in another, was it 76 years? Whatever
76
it is.
years. Maybe it was a case of, if the audiences really respond to this, we'll give them a part 2 and we'll give
maybe some answers.
Yeah, some answers to the one question, why was this movie ever made? But no, it wasn't that bad. But
it is a mix-up, I think, of too many things. The space thing, the vampire thing, the zombie thing,
Someone
and
had some
all
money.
that really weird sex stuff.
You know what? I think this film was a result of a number of fortunate situations for maybe the screenplay writer. Studios had a bit of money flying about, and it's like, actually, we've got this script and we think we can do something with it. And we've got this guy on board. He worked on Star Wars. He did this. He's down for it. Okay, let's go with this.
Yeah.
And they did.
At the very beginning of it, which I didn't remember at all, it reminded me of the beginning of that old movie, Meteor. It's basically like a flyover of, well, they didn't even say what it was. I assume it was meant to be the comet, and if it was actually a very accurate representation of a comet surface. But then I think they fly past that, and then you see the comet.
Then you see the comet. So, yeah.
Maybe it was the moon, who knows?
Who knows? Yeah, who does? But yeah, Lifeforce.
Lifeforce. It's fun and it's enjoyable and it's completely ridiculous. It really is. But yes, like I said, a guilty pleasure. And it was a treat to watch it on my birthday and inflict it on you.
Thank you.
Yes. You will thank me for that later when we're doing some of this.
Yeah, I will. Yes. You can tune in for that as well. You can see how that turns out.
Yeah. So, any other final thoughts on Lifeforce? Can't think if there's any bits, because like the guy who casually gets mentioned that he was dead like all the others was the very first person to be drained by the girl and not killed. She drains the security guard. He rushes down from the office because he's the only person watching on the CCTVs and apparently the only other person in the entire building. He runs down. She does her weird sexual attraction thing and part drains him, and then she's gone. Well, she's walking naked through the building, seducing and killing guys as she goes.
Yeah. I haven't really got any other thoughts. I remembered it better than it actually was, but I was 10.
Often the case.
Yeah. I can see why it didn't do so well. But it was a fun ride down memory lane. Yeah. And got to see Patrick Stewart emote. Yes. And
wriggle about on the floor. And kissing a guy, and it was like a microsecond.
Oh, yeah. That was quite funny, actually, because
she's inhabiting his body.
You know what made me laugh was that, you can see corpses and you can see that they come back to life, and then it got to this point where, okay, this guy's about to kiss another guy. No, that's enough, guys. No, we will have none of that. And then this poltergeist stuff started happening.
And then, that's right, in the helicopter, Patrick Stewart's blood all runs out, draining out of him into a ball in midair. So that's what happened to Patrick Stewart. He died.
Yeah. I totally forgot about that.
A blood version of the female vampire, and she says something to Carson like, "Come to me" or something, and falls on the ground, splat.
Yeah, and it's like, what? I mean, there was obviously moments in this movie which was all about that money shot.
Yeah.
All right. It's like, okay, this is where the budget is going. We're going to have this really intricate special effects sequence that stood out from the rest of the film.
How do we get the story to that point?
Yeah, and that was clearly obvious because, like I said, the beginning part of the film, you looked at it, it's like, actually, you know what, production value is quite high on this. And then it cut to bits when they were in the office and it looked really dated. And then you'd have these money shot sequences that would stand out. So the pacing of the film was all over.
When they're both going through London, all the flames, explosions, all the stunt people and all the makeup and everything they had, I'm impressed on a technical level.
Yeah, it was quite good. I mean, it's not no Spielberg type thing, but still, when it was done, it was quite impressive. But then you could see where less attention had been paid to in regards to scripting and just pacing of the movie.
Yeah. And it does feel like there's a lot that's been cut out editing-wise.
Yeah, or not considered in the
first place. But yes, anyway, that's just our thoughts on Lifeforce. I will watch it again at some point, no doubt. It's a good one to watch with D as well.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll maybe watch it with D sometime.
Yeah, and he can give you his take on that.
His take on that. But there you go, guys. That's just our review of Lifeforce 35 years on. Please subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed this content. Leave me a comment or suggestion for a common topic you'd like to see discussed, or like the video.